fellow Americans, right? This is HQ, and I wanted to look at, what our country has come to with it being the melting pot that it is. I was just feeling down today because of that. My heart aches for those who have been forced to leave this land they once called their home, not because they wanted to, but because fear and policy pushed them in that direction, right? America is a nation built by dreamers, by laborers, by those who crossed oceans for opportunity. They should never be a place where hope turns into fear or exile, right? You as immigrants came here with courage and faith and purpose, and you deserved a chance to live freely without fear that tomorrow would be the day everything disappeared or ICE showed up at the door, right? Under the shadow of that cruelty, families have been separated and entire communities have been hollowed out. The promise of America of liberty, safety, dignity has been betrayed by our leaders who weaponized immigration policy to plant fear rather than unity. This did not make our nation stronger. I'm sorry, it just didn't. It made our spirit weaker. It made us all weaker. The children who cried for their parents, the workers who vanished overnight, the neighbors who suddenly went missing. They are the true victims of a moral failure of this country. To those of us who are left, please know this. All of you were not unwanted, okay? You were unprotected. You are not forgotten. You're mourned in this country, and you are remembered that you were thrown out of it. The pain of your departure echoes in every empty chair, every abandoned house and home, job, farm, every classroom seat left unfulfilled. We are sorry, deeply and truly, we are, that our country failed to defend your humanity when it mattered the most, right? Yet I still believe in an America that can heal. I pray that we can heal. I pray that this will not continue. I still believe that we can reclaim some of our compassion, that one day this country will welcome you back again, not with that suspicion, but with open arms, right? The dream that brought you here was not wrong. It wasn't wrong for you to want to come here. The system that broke you was wrong. And one day justice will find its way back. And I pray for you all. For all.
It's official. Yesterday, President Trump signed an executive order establishing Project Homecoming. The government will pay you if you'll self-deport yourself, including your flight back home. This executive order lays out a 60-day window for immigrants to voluntarily deport themselves. After that, they're gonna deploy 20,000 agents to conduct the biggest deportation campaign ever, according to Trump, to find and deport people. Now, they're saying that if you voluntarily deport yourself, you might have a chance to come back. But is it true? It's not that simple. If you've been illegally in the United States for over a year, the moment you set foot outside the United States, you're automatically barred for 10 years. And people that came here many times unlawfully are subject to the permanent bar. So while the promise is nice, in reality is if you leave the United States after being here unlawfully, the chances of coming back are close to zero. Speak to an attorney before making decisions and follow.
Deporting undocumented migrants the hard way, President Trump says he's going to try the easy way. Just pay them.
What we thought we'd do is a self-deport. where we're going to pay each one a certain amount of money, and we're going to get them a beautiful flight back to where they came from, and they have a period of time. And if they make it, we're going to work with them so that maybe someday, with a little work, they can come back in if they're good people, if they're the kind of people that we want in our company, industrious people that could love our country.
That was the president during an Oval Office event this afternoon. And yeah, you heard him correctly. The president says migrants who are willing to self-deport would be eligible for a certain amount of money. That amount, according to Homeland Security, is $1,000. DHS says if an undocumented migrant uses the CBP app to self-deport, they'll get a plane ticket back to their home country. Once they're confirmed to be back in that country, they will receive their $1,000. And the president says they'll have some kind of path to return to the United States legally at some point. Okay, so there's a lot in there, and I'm going to break it down in this video. I'm sure the first thing that's piquing your interest is the money, which I'm going to get to in a second. But first, you have to understand the president's rhetoric on immigration is now finally running up against the reality of immigration. Of course, we all know the Trump administration has been taking a hardline stance on immigration and doing all these crackdowns and ICE raids. Well, the reality is deporting millions of undocumented people is not easy. It takes money and it takes time through the legal process, neither of which the Trump administration has. Quite frankly, there isn't enough federal funding to support the types of law enforcement efforts the president has been promising, especially not on that big scale. The fact is, according to the Trump administration's own calculations, the average cost to arrest, detain, and remove an undocumented migrant is more than $17,000. That's per person. So multiply that by millions and you can see how that quickly gets out of hand. So this $1,000 and a flight is, in the Trump administration's eyes, a pretty good deal, if the migrant, of course, takes the deal. The other part of what the president is saying is if the migrant self-deports, there may be an easier path for that migrant to return to the United States legally in the future. The fact is, according to the law, if you were found to be here illegally and deported, you could be barred from re-entering the United States in the future for between 3 and up to 20 years. So dangling this idea that there could be some sort of legal path for re-entry may be enticing to get the undocumented migrant out of the country. The other thing you have to understand about this program is it eliminates the Trump administration's requirement to go through the court system. Now that's important because we have seen repeatedly the federal courts blocking President Trump's efforts to deport groups of migrants using obscure laws like the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. Why? Because the judges have been saying that these people were just sent out of the United States with no due process, which according to the courts, at least so far, is a constitutional violation because our Constitution and more than 100-year-old interpretation by the United States Supreme Court says anyone in this country, regardless of whether they are a citizen or not, must be given due process. But the president doesn't want to commit to that due process because he says it'll take too much time.
It's a very difficult thing with the courts because the courts have all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they said, maybe you have to have trials. We're going to have 5 million trials. Doesn't work.
Quick fact check there. The Supreme Court justices and the federal courts who have ruled so far did not say trials. They said due process. Those are two very different things. But we are going to probably be getting more guidance about all of this from the Supreme Court very soon. So I'll keep you posted on that. The bottom line, though, is in the Trump administration's eyes, if an undocumented migrant self-deports, then there's no need for due process, no due process required because that migrant is leaving the United States voluntarily. And that solves another hang-up for the Trump administration. So if you want to read more about this new program, I'm going to email all that information out to you in tonight's Facts HQ email, so make sure you sign up.
You cannot go to the airport and ask to speak to a CBP officer and try to self-deport or get self-deported. That's not how it works. Deportation is a formal order by an immigration judge or officer, and they have to make a formal finding of deportation. This means you have to be processed. This means you run the risk of being in removal proceedings or detained. If you just want to leave the U.S., then you get a flight and get on a plane to your country with your passport and just leave the U.S. You may have a ban for unlawful presence, but you're not considered to be deported. So if you go to the airport and try to ask an immigration officer to possibly get self-deported, you also run the risk of them detaining you there.
Donald Trump's immigration policies have illegal immigrants running scared. 18,000 immigrants have self-deported from the United States. Some state they just don't want to deal with ICE and the embarrassment of a public encounter. But how are they getting back to their country of origin? Well, they're not passing through the tumultuous Darien Gap anymore. There is a gentleman out of Panama who is advertising on TikTok for $250 travel accommodations. And what these accommodations get you is a boat ride from Panama to the tip of Colombia so that you can carry on to your country of origin. It is a 6-hour boat ride where you are packed shoulder to shoulder with other individuals fleeing the United States.
I self-deported from the United States to Mexico, and one of the biggest misconceptions that everybody has about me is that I come from money, and that couldn't be further from the truth. I come from a little pueblito called Tlaquepaque, Jalisco, and no, not the parts where all of the mariachis are and it's like really pretty and everybody goes. I am from the part that the streets are still not paved at the moment, and there's a lot of, it's just a rancho. My parents decided to leave to the States in 1998, where we basically lived in San Diego all the time. And when we were in the States, we didn't struggle for the first years. It seemed to be going pretty good for my parents. My dad has always been a household moneymaker. My mom has always been a stay-at-home mom. When we crossed over, it was only my sister and I. But she then in the 2000s, or actually in the year 2000, she had my brother. And for a long time, it was just the three of us. And we always lived in pretty normal looking apartments, houses. It was always rent, but it was never like ugly parts. And it wasn't until 2006 when the fourth child was born. And he was born, and then my parents started struggling, and we would live in like rooms. So imagine it was like 4 kids, 2 parents living, so 6 of us living in a room in somebody's home. And a lot of the times these people had children themselves, so we were like 10 people living in a 2-bedroom apartment. Or sometimes there was one time where we used to live in somebody's living room, so every day we would pull up the sofa couch and then put our blankets, and at a certain hour we had to get up, clean everything, hide all of our stuff behind a curtain, and it had to look like nobody lived in that living room. I guess that was the kind of like the agreement that they had with those people. And then my dad gets deported, and my mom is obligated to file for just like the EBT and all of that help from the government. Even though she had EBT, like we were not living lavishly, we were not eating anything more than tacos dorados de frijoles most of the time. And I think I didn't really notice the struggle until we were in Mexico, because I came to Mexico and I realized that my dad owed like 5 months in rent. And then I went into school and they would ask you for a uniform. They would ask you for cartulinas, which is like those big giant poster papers. And my dad would get so stressed out if we asked him for the supplies, but also like I was gonna flunk my school if I didn't ask for the supplies. But I remember being so scared to even ask for like 10 pesos for the cartulina. I left my home because I was 17 and my parents have gotten separated, and it was only my dad, my brother, and I. And I thought that things were gonna be easier now that it was only like the 3 of us. I started working and I started saving up my money. I remember I would only make 1,700 pesos a week because I was working part-time, and then I had to go to high school the other part-time. And Again, 1,700 right now is probably like less than $100 a week. And so my dad found out that I was hiding my money in a mason jar under my bed, but I had thought it was my brother. So I went to my dad and said, hey, I need to talk to you. I think that my brother stole money from me. I had it under my bed and blah, blah, blah. And he goes, no, it was me. I needed it to buy food. What do you expect? And I just was like, I couldn't say anything out of respect, but I also thought, like, if you would have asked, I would have given it to you. But that's how much we were struggling, to the point where when I started working, my dad took money from me. And so that's how I decided that I was going to leave my home and then just look for an apartment. And I found my first studio, and I was pretty lucky because it was in Playas de Tijuana, and I was paying $170.
Heading outside the ICE facility in Orlando, Maria embraces her son.
Es algo muy duro. Porque dejo a mis hijos.
This is very hard. I don't want to leave my kids, she said. But when Maria went in for her regular check-in with ICE Tuesday, she was told she had to return to El Salvador and was even fitted with an ankle monitor.
It's hard. It's really hard. I've been trying so hard to stay strong, but it gets to a point where you just, I don't even know what to think.
Maria is a mother of two and has been in the U.S. for 20 years. She says she has a clean record, has a home, and works hard.
We've been trying since 2016 to get her the right way, the citizenship, but lawyers haven't really helped much.
On top of this, she recently learned she has skin cancer. Her neighbor, Pastor Jose Rodriguez, says Maria is the model neighbor who's been supporting his family through hard times.
America is about promise and it's about freedom, but it's also about safety. It's about community. So I'm here literally pleading for a neighbor, not because she helps my mother, but because she's part of the community. The Bible is about immigrants. It's about God redeeming us, God saving us through an immigration story. That's not me being woke, that's scripture.
Nearly an hour after Maria went into the ICE facility, not knowing when she'd see her family again, there was a moment of relief.
It felt good. It definitely felt good. I get to see her another day. You know what I mean? Hopefully longer, but knowing them, it felt good though.
Let me clarify something real quick. I have to do this every now and again because when people hear that my husband's self-deported, they think he did the right thing. He was trying to do it the right way. No, he wasn't. We fled. We didn't leave the U.S. to try and come back the right way. We left the U.S. because it's a sinking ship. And if you think that the U.S. is anything like what it used to be, you're sorely mistaken. And if you think that I should be bringing the U.S. up or celebrating what it is today, please don't follow me. Please don't. I will not sacrifice my integrity for viewers. The U.S. is broken. I'm not proud to be an American, quote unquote. Still live in America. But I digress. Trump and his goonies have ruined the country. Y'all just keep letting him. And I wasn't going to risk my husband's safety, so we left. We live down here in rural Mexico. Yes, our lives are different. But we're free. We're happy. I share my experiences. I compare the two. I will always compare the two. Because for years, I was told that Mexico's dangerous. Mexico's scary. Mexico is a third world country. And while, yes, I have witnessed myself problems with infrastructure, problems with this and problems with that, I also know that I live in a very rural area of Mexico, and it is not indicative of all of Mexico. But I still share my experiences because I'm amazed at the difference. I'm amazed at what I was taught and what is real. But if you're on here and you're a supporter of the cheese, potato, and chief, and you're following me, I'm not going to say things that are going to make you happy. So let's just go ahead and move along. My goal is just to be authentically me. And I'm not going to sacrifice my integrity for viewers. I'll say it 1,000 times. I'm not. As of right now, I am not proud to be an American citizen. I am not. But I can still vote.
My friend gave up DACA after 21 years in the USA. What the fuck? What were you thinking, bro? I cried when they took my DACA away, bro. Why would you give it up? Shit. Before you tell me that, tell me, how old were you when you left to the United States? I'm too fucked up. I can't do this video.
Obviously, I was 7 years old, you know. But I completed 8 years.
You was 8 years old when you got to the United States.
Over there, yeah. Ahorita fue a cumplir 8 años allá.
Damn.
Porque me quedé, you know, 1 week in the detention bullshit, you know, when they...
Oh, when you get caught by ICE?
Yeah.
So you got put in the hielera también?
Yeah, for like a week. They gave me some fucking... You know, ¿sabes qué te dan de comer? ¿Sabes qué te dan de comer?
A fucking sandwich?
With ham, con jamón, yeah, with ham. Yeah.
Nigga, it's not even pan bimbo, bro.
Hell no, nigga.
Deported from the United States to Mexico, and I'm often asked if I needed to have a lot of money to furnish my apartment the way I wanted it. Believe it or not, 90% of my apartment is all from the tianguis or secondhand. I come from a family of 7, and we didn't have much growing up, and oftentimes we lived in other people's homes, whether it was renting a room in their home or in their garage. One time when we were living in somebody's garage, they kicked us out from one day to the next, and then when we went back to retrieve our stuff, they had stolen most of my dolls, and since then I wasn't really allowed to have anything nice to avoid it getting stolen. I didn't grow up with my own room or with pretty stuff. When I finally moved out on my own, I didn't really have money either, so I got used to digging through mountains of things every time I would go thrifting. And I'm always looking for a bargain. I don't care if it's new or used. I will spend hours looking for that one little pink thing or that has golden accents. Keep in mind, I've been doing this for years, so it's really a collection over time to have my apartment like this. And I'm sure little Victoria would be so proud.
I know I've been gone for a while. I didn't plan to disappear, but the truth is, self-deporting has not been easy at all. Mexico is beautiful, yes, very beautiful. But starting over in a new country, grieving absolutely everything and everyone you left behind, feeling homesick, trying to build a new life from scratch, it's pretty heavy. It takes a toll and it puts you in a kind of depression. The truth is, I got quiet because I was struggling, and I kind of still am. Not because I regret my choice. I don't regret moving to Mexico, but because even making the right choice can hurt. It can feel pretty sad. I fell a little bit into a kind of depression where it's hard to find the silver lining and the beauty in things, and that took over. Both Taquito and I have been feeling a bit of anger, a bit of resentment, a bit of loneliness, a bit of sadness about the fact that we had to make this move. We love Mexico. Mexico is beautiful, and we're happy to be here. We don't regret our choice, but that doesn't mean it doesn't feel heavy. During these last couple of weeks, I've been taking time to reconnect with myself, with my identity as a Mexican that spent their life in America, with my culture, with my voice. Who am I really? I'm still grappling with a lot, and there are days that feel pretty heavy. And there are also days where I do miss the life that I left. But I'm trying to stay grounded. I am finding joy and hope in the smallest of details. Some days that means going out to the beach and seeing the beautiful ocean. And some other days it means just sitting outside in the balcony, letting the sun hit my face and warm me up a little bit. Sometimes it just means staying in bed quietly, watching TV, trying not to let my mind think too much. All those little moments of joy with people, with myself, reconnecting with my identity, my culture, what kind of voice I have. It hasn't fixed everything, right? I'm not on the other end of this just yet. I'm on my way. And there is still a lot of joy to be found here in Mexico. I can't grieve the life that I left, but there is so much joy that I can find outside of that life. But it does take a little bit of a push to get through that. So I'm just trying to adjust, to breathe, to heal really. I really appreciate your patience. I appreciate all of it. I'm not gone. I'm just finding my way again. And I'm excited to get back into making videos and sharing my Mexican life with all of you. Thank you. And I'm sending each and every single one of you a big hug and a lot of love. Thanks.
When I came back to Mexico after living my whole life in the United States, I felt like my life was literally over. Having to start from zero in a place that feels so different of what you're used to, but still supposed to be your home. I felt so lost, so scared, and honestly angry. I didn't grow up with much, so I always knew that I wanted to have a really good adulthood, and for a long time, I thought that wasn't possible unless I had a US salary. So with working at the call center and finding little ways to invest and duplicate my money, I've been able to have a fun adulthood and enjoy my life here in Mexico. I'm not spending lavishly, and it's important to have a work-life balance, but if I can enjoy Mexico, so can